Hi everyone, my name is María. Really excited to be here with you all today. We're here to talk about career in open source, and we've got, Maren, Westermann, Stefanie, Senger, and dear Maria, Léon here to share their insights and to answer any questions that you might have as well in terms of, how has, or how does open source, or how can open source actually help, develop you professionally, expand your network, and open up opportunities potentially. So in terms of the agenda, I will sort of I'll invite the panelists to introduce themselves and share their initial thoughts on this topic. And then, obviously, you, the audience, are, incredibly welcome to ask any questions along the way. You'll see that the meeting is being recorded. And so please, if you feel uncomfortable having your video on, please feel free to turn your video off. The recording will be sort of shared on our social media channel, which is really only YouTube, and we may, share some snippets or a photo on LinkedIn. Let me see. And, I do want to sort of also just highlight that, I'm trusting that everyone here is going to be respectful in terms of their conduct and how they frame their questions to each other, so that we can have a really incredible, productive and engaging conversation. So is there anything I've missed, Anessa or Dia? Is there anything else that you both want to add?
That's great. I'm excited to start the conversation.
Yeah, it's great. So, so can I just, I guess, invite maybe, Maren, can I invite you to sort of introduce yourself to people and maybe share your initial thoughts on how contributing to open source has supported your career?
Yeah, hello, I'm Maren Westermann. I have a background in science, actually. So I'm a career changer. I did a PhD in environmental science in Australia, in Brisbane, and then switched to data science and machine learning engineering. And contributing to open source has greatly helped me to find jobs and in learning lots about programming, machine learning, data science. And with every pull request that I make to one of the repositories that I have contributed to, I learn something. And so, yeah, I'm really getting a lot out of it.
Thank you, Maren. Stefanie, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Stefanie Senger, and I'm also a career changer like Maren. I did history before. I wrote a PhD in a totally different field about solidarity movements. And I was kind of missing something. And then after I finished that, I was going into programming. So I learned a lot on my own. I did a bootcamp, and then after that, I was teaching there at this bootcamp place. And I was applying to an internship at Scikit-Learn, and to my own surprise, I was accepted. I did the internship, and now I'm still working on Scikit-Learn for a profession, which I really enjoy.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Stefanie. And Dia.
Yes, hi, I'm Dea. I am a career changer, but it's the second time I changed. I was an electrical engineer. I worked in Mexico and then in the US. And then I studied an MBA and I switched to business and financial analyst. Then life brought me to France. I also worked as an analyst and I had 2 jobs as analyst here. But then I lost my job and I decided to go into coding, but I couldn't find a job. And the one thing that has helped me, besides all the classes and things I tried by myself, was open source. And so I'm very happy with contributing, and I have access to the best ones, and I can help and learn at the same time. I just love it, and I have met wonderful people, and that's it.
Thank you, dear. I know that, you know, Supana had interviewed you for one of our blogs on the Contributor Experience Project website, and you mentioned, and we're very privileged actually, Marco is also on the call, and you mentioned how important it was, you know, to have Marco's support. Are you able to tell us a little bit more about, you know, the support that you received, and especially starting out in open source?
Yes, first I have to say I started with scikit-learn. I attended a workshop by PyLadies, and before that I was I attended a workshop with the machine learning and data science women in machine learning and data science in Paris. That the first one was just one day. The second one was a 4-session workshop in Paris as well with the, like I said, PyLadies. And okay, so the first ones to help me with my pull requests were the scikit-learn guys and ladies. And then, yes, and then I attended an online sprint by Pandas. And I heard Marco Gorelli, he helped me with the first pull request for Pandas. And he was super friendly. I was so afraid. I was very shy, and I didn't want people to laugh at me. And he was just so friendly and so kind. And then okay, so I stopped a little bit, but then I also watched his video on YouTube. How was it? Yes, you can contribute to open source, and I said, okay, I have to keep at it. I was just so shy that I didn't want to continue. It's not that I didn't want to continue. I just felt overwhelmed by all these smart people, and I said, okay. So it was very, very nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, changing a career, like all you three, you 3 ladies have changed your career, and it's like quite incredible because it's quite a brave thing to do. And having the support of someone like, within the open source community where people like Marco are incredibly supportive helps that transition for sure. I'm curious though as to what was it that drew you to open source? Was that part of your career transition plans, or was it something you happened upon? This is an open question to anyone.
I can maybe make a start on that. So in late 2019, I left Australia, where I had lived for 7 years, and then moved to Germany, where I'm from. And I applied for jobs, and then the pandemic hit, and everyone went on a hiring freeze. And so I thought, like, okay, what do I do now? And my partner at the time, who worked or still works in IT, he was saying to me, like, oh, you should start contributing to open source, because that will look really good on your CV. And I was like, sure, that sounds like a good idea, but where do I even start? And there was, this was just before the pandemic. Anyway, it was around the time that the pandemic started, and there was a machine learning and data science meetup. And I asked the organizer, who was Noah Chamir, by the way. Many of you probably know them. what kind of project I could contribute to. And she was saying, oh, there's a developer, a scikit-learn developer from Container in Berlin, and you could just reach out to him. And that's how I started. So he helped me with making the first pull request. That was really helpful. But yeah, then the pandemic fully hit, and I was by myself, like no one could actually meet in person. And then what was really helpful actually was that Data Umbrella, who had planned a contributing to scikit-learn sprint in New York, they met their sprint online because of the pandemic. And so I signed up and I took part. And that was really helpful actually, because they had created a list of easy issues. And so before the sprint, I could actually go through all the issues and have a look at them and already think about like what might need to be done and how difficult these issues might be. And so yeah, it was kind of the pandemic that brought me to open source, because I was unemployed, I had time. Yeah, and I loved it, and I stayed with it.
Thanks, Maren. Stefanie, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yes. So when Maren was talking about the pandemic, I was thinking to myself, oh, wow, seen backwards, it was also a big thing for me and for my start into this new career. It was a bit early. So most of my now let's get into tech learning was after that. And also during the pandemic, being a mother, I was super busy with like taking parenting at home and so. But the good thing was I was kind of interested in this career and I didn't know what it all was. And what I did was I went on Meetup and I noticed, wow, they're all online. So I was visiting random meetups without actually knowing what it was. So I was visiting those random meetups and trying to find out if it is something for me. So this is how it started. Yes, and then I decided that it's interesting and I wanted to go on with this. And I did this boot camp and I did lots of courses online and so on. And I was always searching for, oh, wow, okay, so I quit my old job for it. And I knew I had a year. So I wanted to find out that like I had a limit, like I had to know after a year, there had to be a decision, let's say. And I was looking for everything that I could improve myself or learn something new. And I was recommended the PyLadies meetups by someone else that I knew, and she took me to their sprints. So there were sprints like more or less monthly on contributing to open source. And my first one was contributing to pandas. And I had so much help there preparing. So I came there knowing nothing and I got out knowing something. And this was a big success moment. So then I kept on doing it and so on. Yeah, it was kind of the search for how can I learn the fastest way.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like sprints are really important. Not just from a
yeah.
How does it work actually? How does a sprint work? Whether it's online or in person, are they different in terms of how it's structured?
Well, I did one online sprint and the others were all in person because it was after the pandemic. But there was like for the first one that I mentioned, which was extremely helpful for me, the pandas one, they had some preparation before where they helped people set up the project. And it was this was online. It was extremely helpful, I found, because it was like, so this is the contribution guide, really, you need someone who affirms you that this is actually the thing that you need to do. So, and Patrick Höfler and Noah Tamir were there online and they were guiding us so the group of new contributors through this guide, and we could ask questions anytime. And there were some problems with my setup because for whatever reason, I didn't have a C compiler on my computer. And at this point, I didn't even know what it was, but they helped me to install one. And without that, I would have been lost and I would not have been able to continue that. So those sprints there's somebody there who helps you when you get stuck, and actually somebody who guides you through it and tells you what to do. So very, very helpful and very big thing for me. Otherwise, I would not have gotten into open source probably.
And are you still in touch, with the people that you connected with over those sprints?
With some I am, yes.
Stefanie, we've got a question from Magdalena. She wanted to know, did you apply for the Scikit-Learn mentorship at NumPy in Berlin in the spring of 2023?
Yes, this was exactly the one I had applied to. Maybe she's seen it and also applied maybe, but yeah, this was the thing.
Do you have any follow-up questions, Magdalena? Okay. Please feel free to, I can't see everyone, but if you want to ask a question, I think people can raise their hands. Is that right on Zoom, Inessa? And also please put your questions into the chat as well, and we can collect them there. I also want to welcome Supana, who's also just joined us. Hi. Okay, so does anyone have any questions at this point? Oh. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you, Magdalena. So you've applied for the same mentorship. Curiously, I mean, I'm just thinking, I know, Dea, you also applied for an internship, I think. Is that right, with Quantsite?
Yes, Quantsite Lab. That's what I'm finishing now.
Are you able to share some insight in terms of how that opportunity arose and what you did to be successful in that application?
And yes, sure. It was a series of events because I started contributing to pandas. After a while, Marco was my mentor, and he managed to have a grant from NumFocus, and we worked in the examples of pandas. So I worked with that first contract. When that was done, I had another contract again with NumFocus, and the second time was to work with the benchmarks. And the second one, it took me about 6 or 7 months to do it. And because of this project, I had something to show at the interview and also on my cover letter to Quantsite Labs. It was a project where I learned a lot. It was hard, it was complicated, but I really liked the exposure to so many things, and thanks to that, I had the internship. Yes, and I wanted to say early, but I just started rambling like I usually do when I'm nervous. But I wanted to say that open source let me have hope and to come back to the job market. I had everything against me, and all the advice that you heard in all the classes, videos, or whatever, nothing applied to me, nothing. It's always easier to change careers when when you are in your country and when you are, well, I don't know. Okay, I'm not saying that it's harder for me because I can't say, but just to tell you, I didn't know anybody. I don't have a network where I am. I didn't have anybody, no family, no friends, no nothing, no job, nothing. So all the advice that you hear is like, tell your friends and your family that you're looking for a job. Yeah, okay, what if I don't have any of that? Oh, yes, when you are at work, you start doing a project and then you will transfer. Yes, what if I don't have a job? And when you are in school, you talk to your professors. Well, what if it's been a long time since I haven't been? So everything was against me. I didn't have a French diploma, and the list goes on. And you have to stop me because I can
No,
speak
I think we can feel and hear your pain, dear.
and
I mean,
that's it. Yes, I become emotional because I took so many certificates and classes, and I did everything, and nothing helped. It was just open source, and so that's why I get so emotional. And, it was so hard for me for such a long time.
honestly, dear, changing jobs is hard enough as it is. Changing careers and then doing it in a completely new country, it's really tough, really tough. And I guess this is one of the things about open source and the fact that, there's opportunities to engage both online and in person. And I'm curious about this whole notion around visibility, right? There's something about being visible as well, so that you actually have, you're cognizant of of what opportunities are out there, and you're meeting new people. Maren, can I ask you, how has your participation in open source projects enhanced your visibility and reputation?
Yeah, so as I said, in 2020, I was very active. And then towards the end of that year, I got a job and I switched from data science to machine learning engineering. So it was more engineering heavy, and I come from a science background. So that was hard for me. And I tried to stay active in open source, but it was just really difficult because at the end of the day, I was often just tired because I had so much to learn. And yeah, so then at some point, I decided that I want to get into it again. And I decided that it would be nice to have a study group, to not be by myself. And in the meantime, I had become an organizer of PyLadies Berlin. So I started open source hack nights. And at the beginning, we didn't have hack nights that were focused on a specific project. And at the beginning, the hack nights were like popular, but then we had quite a high churn. So people weren't coming back because often they felt overwhelmed, because the idea was to just let people freely choose the project, and we would help them to get started. But getting started is actually hard when you don't even know where to begin. And so we realized that it would be much better to actually have mentored sprints. And that's when we then started with contributing to scikit-learn, pandas, sprints, and we had contributing to Jupyter sprint. And that really helped. And it also really helped me to stay active because slowly I was building a community. Like I was building a community with the sprint participants, or like I was part of the sprint community within Berlin. And then also I got to know the maintainers better of like scikit-learn and pandas and Jupyter and so on. And that was also really helpful to build the community on both sides, really, like or like to build the network with the maintainers as well as with the sprint participants, and also connecting them. So that was really nice. And I've been giving presentations about my experiences. So yeah, that's kind of the journey.
Thanks, Maren. I'd like to ask a question to the audience, is there anything in particular that anyone is curious to learn more about? We have a wonderful opportunity here. Mile.
Hey, I'm totally new to, I don't even know how to refer to it, but it's the first year that I started learning about data analysis. I used to analyze data at my previous job, at my last job, but just descriptive statistics in Excel and Google Sheets. And when the company shut down, my former colleagues, the ones much smarter than I, told me, you're talented in this, so why don't you just take time off and do some boot camp to learn languages like Python and SQL. So I did that this summer, and that's what led me to this meeting, because for me, everything is new, like I'm tabula rasa. And then at one point, just last week, came to my mind the question, what does it mean open source? What is the opposite to open source? And then Googling for open source, I came across this invitation to this meeting. So honestly, I don't know much or anything. And I often hear when other ladies were speaking about contribution. So what are the requirements for a person to be a contributor, to contribute, as in education, as in skills, etc.? And what do you mean? How to contribute?
Brilliant question, Mile. Brilliant
Yes.
question. Who would like to respond? Dear?
I can start. I'm sorry, I have my mic off. Okay, contribution. There are all kinds of contributions. It means you can participate on a project, and all the famous projects have, or if they are good at documenting, they have a way so you can learn how to start. They have issues. Okay, they call issues. There are things that you can do as a newcomer, and normally the sprints are to welcome new people. And there are many ways, like I said, that you can help. And to get used to the tools that you need, I will start, or at least that's the way I started. I started with documentation, and it's supposed to be easy. You will be surprised how much you will learn with documentation only. And it's just a great way to practice your tools, and if you like it, you're gonna be hooked, like I am, and then just keep going. And so contributor means somebody who comes and participates, even if you don't want to. Even if you don't want to start with coding, just if you're using a tool, you can, and you see an issue, we call it an issue. If you see a little problem or something that can be improved, you can just go to the repository. I don't know if you are familiar with the word repository, is where the code is. Okay.
Are you talking about GitHub, for example?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so you use this open source program if you see something that can be better, or something a bug or something, you can also just come and speak about it. That's also a contribution. So, but I highly recommend it to. I also was, in my last job, I was working with Excel sheets, and the thing is, with open source, the great thing about, one of the great things is that there is a public record of your work. When my job was relocated, nobody knew what I did, and the few people who knew me, there was a very small part of my job that where it was I was entering data on an Excel spreadsheet, but there was a hidden part, very complicated. I was handling more than $50 million in analysis, but nobody knew. And so my manager knew it, but he didn't even know how difficult it was. And because there were no problems, I was doing it even sometimes during the weekend, etc. And who was left go? I was left go because nobody knew me, nobody knew what I did, and it was very, very hard. So I strongly suggest people, even if you don't contribute, go and put your work where everybody can see it. You take a class, you learn something, put it somewhere, and so people see it. Also, I took many certifications and classes. I did a project even before open source contributing. I did projects that I think they were very useful. Where are they? Nobody knows. I had they were in my old computer. Somebody actually was using it, etc. And how can I talk about it? How can I show what I know? Go open your account on GitHub. Start by putting your homework and so people can see what you're doing. It was so hard for me, and that if you have questions, call me. I'll help you do this.
And I'm sure, dear, you will be there to support Mele with his first contribution. I think I'm also thinking that there are issues that are raised. I'm not a coder, Mele, too, either. I mean, I'm like, I tried and I couldn't get past Hello World, but it's, one of those things where, but I still feel I can contribute to the open source community, like running sessions like this. So there are many ways in which you can contribute. But I do know, and maybe Stefanie, Maren, and Marco, because you obviously have supported newcomers to the open source community, how can someone like Mele even know where to start their first contribution? Are there issues registered that they can read through? And then they can select something and give it a go? Or is there anything more that either of you can add?
Yeah, maybe I can say something. So it's indeed pretty challenging to find a place to start when you have never done it. So this is why those sprints are so useful. But those sprints are not all the time and not everywhere. And it depends on if you have access to this wonderful resource. So if you don't, then the requirements are still actually just your time. And it's just your time, meaning if you are starting out, it can be that you will work a whole week on something extremely tiny. But this is the learning experience that will make you grow. So if you go to a repository that's interesting to you, so maybe it should be something you have been working with before and you know more or less what it does. So then you can go through the issues, and usually there are some tags on the issues that are called good first issue, or sometimes a meta issue, which meta issue means that this is lots of issues or lots of PRs could come from it that are pretty similar. And then you can look at the other ones and see what happened, see how it's done, and like try to recreate this. But it will take you ages. You could also go to the documentation, and like as a beginner, you actually know that this part is totally not understandable. And then you have to go into the nitty-gritty details, and it will also take you ages, but you will learn something from it. And yeah, it's your time you would dedicate for it, and would be a lot of time and a lot of work. But still, it's a place to start. And then after a while, you build some knowledge and some skills. And the good thing is, what Dea said, that everybody sees what you've learned, and it's not lost. Even if it takes a lot of time, it's not lost at all.
Thanks, Stefanie. Maren, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think Stefanie pretty much covered everything. Yeah, it's definitely not easy to start. Or one point that I can add is ideally look for a project that you're actually already using. So for example, if you already use pandas, for example, then that might be a good start because you're already familiar with the project. Or otherwise, just look for what interests you most, because if you're interested, then you're more likely to actually get into it and to have the motivation to make a contribution.
Also,
Thanks, Maren.
oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Small thing. Most of the projects have a Slack channel or Discord, and if you feel more comfortable going there and talking directly to people on real time, it's very nice also.
Thanks, dear. I hope that helps, Billy. I do have another question from Magdalena. She asks, I would like to know, what are your experiences or guesses why there are less women in open source than in software engineering, data science, machine learning in general? What are the main blockers for women who are considering to contribute to open source, and how could we address those blockers?
Yeah, I can maybe start on that one.
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple challenges or hurdles. For example, many projects are very dominated by white men, and so if you're the first person who is not, or who doesn't have that demographic, it's harder for you because first of all, you feel like you're different and you're wondering if you fit in, and then another thing is also that the hurdle for getting started can also be higher. I have found that less diverse projects often have a contributing to guideline that is less detailed and also sometimes not kept up to date. And so it's harder for people coming from diverse backgrounds who are often career changers to actually get into it, because you're contributing to guide of the open source project that you would like to contribute to is the first point of contact sort of for getting started. So that's one thing where yeah, many people just don't know how to get everything set up and get started. And then another problem is yeah, time and money. So for example, from my GitHub profile, I can very clearly see when I've been busy or when I started a new job. So my contributions like go up and down depending on how much time I have. And then another issue is also that many women still carry out the majority of the care work. So many women do the majority of the work for looking after children or elderly people. And so they often simply have less time. So maybe someone else wants to add something to that.
Thanks, Maren.
If I can add something, in electrical engineering, there are even less women than in software engineering or open source or anything. And I think it starts at a very, very young age, how families raise the girls. And I thought it was only in Mexico because, you know, it's a Latin country, it's a kind of macho system. And no, I think it's all over. And families don't treat equally boys and girls. The girl has to clean up, and the girl gets the pink doll, and the boy gets the fun Lego, or the, you know, in some families I knew, they would buy one computer. Now it's probably cheaper, so it's a little bit different with the phones, etc. But they will buy a computer, it will go to the room of the boys and not to the room of the girl. So I think it starts a very young age. For example, when I went to engineering school, my professors booed me. They will ask me. Actually, I have been in electronics since I'm 13 years old. And I got my engineering degree as a teenager because I did it super fast. And people will laugh at me, like at school, like, because I was much younger than the rest and the only girl. And I had professors laughing at me, saying, "What are you doing here?" And, you know, things like this. And for a young girl, that's horrible. Now I laugh about it, but it happens. So imagine, then I go to the job market, I can't get a job because they are for guys only. And the list goes on and on and on. And unfortunately, in software development, it's a little bit the same. The ladies, you open, I feel that in my field, at least the field I was at a disadvantage even before opening my mouth. Really. So anyway, I'm complaining, but
No,
that's
yes, thank you. Thanks for sharing your experience, dear. It's important, you know, and I'm hoping things, you know, have moved on. I'm wondering in the work environment, you know, Stefanie, you know, have you seen any changes? I mean, I noticed that you were a lecturer as well at Westermann. Did you notice any kind of, you know, challenges?
So I can so relate to what Dea said, because when I was like a young girl, I had some similar experiences, but I couldn't say so for doing the boot camp. So it was like 60% male and 40% female. And they were pretty open with diversity and so on. So this was not the case there. But the difference is what I think, like many women who come into tech and into open source, they are career changers because they didn't pursue this path as early as in their career as the boys did, because it's not in such a valuable option to many women. And I think, unfortunately, it is not until today. So you come in as a career changer and you see that there's so much to learn, which other people, like mostly men, are like, it's easy for them because they have had 5 years of experience with something similar or so, or they come from a STEM discipline and they know some programming from this side already and so on. So you can see there's a difference, and it's pretty difficult not to feel stupid. So you have to, if you're a woman, I think you really have to ignore that feeling and say it's just a feeling, and in a few years it will be over. But it's definitely more difficult, more challenging on the psychological side. But on the other hand, like I see that on open source, there's a really good chance for women because it is open and you can access it more easily. You can start it in your free time and nobody needs to give you the permission to do so. You can just try and play around with it and see where you go. So this is open. This is some kind of openness that would help diverse backgrounds to start with this.
Yeah. Thank you, Stefanie. Thank you, dear Maren. I'm just mindful that we've got about just under, about 10 minutes remaining for the session. So if you've got any other questions, to please, raise your hand or put them in the chat. I do have a question, probably this relates to a little bit of what you were, sorry. Okay, I'll start with you, Anessa. Since you haven't asked the question, I've asked loads already. How do you balance that? Thank you. That actually is related to the question that I was going to ask. How do you balance technical growth and community engagement within your open source contributions? That's a really good one. It's from Anessa. Who would like to start? Maren?
Maybe I can start. Because I've never done open source contributions as part of my paid work, so I always did it in my free time, and I'm also a co-organizer of Fridays Berlin. It's a really good question, and something that I think that I'm always kind of like renegotiating with myself. So organizing meetups and open source sprints takes time. I've done it a lot in the last 2 years, and I always, it takes a lot of time, but I also always get something out of it, and especially the open source sprints, because when I help people setting up the development environment or help them to make contributions, I also always learn something. But yeah, I've organized a lot of sprints, and then towards the end of the year, last year and beginning of this year, I was almost continuously sick for a couple of months, and then I thought like, okay, maybe I need to take a step back. So I didn't know whether it was because it was just a bad flu season or because maybe I did a bit too much. So I took a step back, and now I feel better, and now I feel like, I would love to do this again. But yeah, it's not easy, and I think you need to be well aware of your boundaries and how much you can do.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because because we, in the open source community work, asynchronously primarily, and so you have to make special effort to build community as well, and to feel part of the community. Otherwise, it can feel quite lonely, especially if you don't have many opportunities to meet people in person. What are your thoughts, Stefanie?
So I'm not sure if this question was meant this way, but I was thinking from the perspective of a project. So how can the project grow, and at the same time, with lots of new contributors coming in, how can maintainers ensure quality? And this is a very tricky topic. So what they do at Scikit-Learn is they try to bind the people. So they give lots of people the opportunity to start, and some will stick, and then they work with them and they help them further. But new contributors always have to make sure that to show somehow that they want to stick, and it's not just something they do between jobs. So this is a balance for a project that's not so easy, but the solution is, or the attempt of a solution is to bind people to stay longer in the projects. And in personal terms, I can't really answer this, because now I'm paid for open source work, and career growth or my technical training is my career growth at the same time. So in this respect, I'm pretty lucky.
Yeah. Thanks, Stefanie.
The way I thought of this question, it was more on a personal level, but I hear your perspective, Stefanie. It is a balancing act for any open source project, the lead team. How do you how do you nurture this welcoming and supportive culture for newcomers, because one day these newcomers will, well, some of them will become the next maintainers. But in the meantime, you need to adhere to the roadmap, to the vision, to to take care of the technical debt, and it's a hard balancing act for any project lead, for any core team. It is also a balancing act. It is a very personal question for me, something that I am thinking of pretty much every week, if not more often, is that we all heard that sprints are vital for newcomers to feel like they belong to open source, to stick around. And sprints take a lot of time to prepare. Like I am quite well familiar with the process that Data Umbrella, Reshma Sheikha, the executive director of Data Umbrella, puts into place to make this sprints successful. It's a lot of time. It's a job of its own. Unfortunately, it's very hard to get paid or grow professionally, spending time on community organizing. And I don't have an answer for it. That's why I ask this question.
Thanks, Anessa. We've got 5 minutes remaining, and I'm just wondering if I could ask each of the panelists to say, I guess, I want to say top tips, but that's kind of a little boring, but I will say top tips. I mean, like, it is hard to break into, not only a community, but to Mile's point, to know where to start. So and to continue, right? That's the other thing, to start something and to maintain that commitment to it. So what would you say is your, what is your advice, your parting words, so to speak, for today's session? Who would like to start?
I can start.
Sure.
Okay, I have two things for the two sides. For the contributor, don't be afraid. That's it. Don't be afraid. Just do it. It is not. I'm not advertising Nike, but just do it. And then for the projects, when you promote a sprint, maybe the word sprint is it's too much. I used to think that sprint meant to be for experts only, and maybe just make clear that it's for newcomers. It's actually I went to the PyLadies workshop because it was called workshop. And just call it sprint is or hackathon is like, oh no, so okay, so that will be my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, dear. Maren or Stefanie?
Yeah, I would say do what you love doing. If you do open source in your free time and you enjoy doing it, then keep doing it. And if you feel like you enjoy it less, then you can maybe contribute to a different project, because I also found that every project has kind of its own vibe, so to speak, and different challenges. And it's also really helpful to contribute to different kinds of projects and see what the differences are. Yeah, and always when you do it in your free time, ask yourself the question, am I still enjoying it? And then if yes, then keep going.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that you mentioned try something new, a different project, different experience, right? Different learning. That's key. Thank you, Maren. And Stefanie.
So my 2 cents. So I would say if you start contributing to open source, then the attitude that serves you best is you come as an explorer and you find out if you can do something here. So You get there and the challenge is yourself. It is not the project. So you find out something about yourself, in fact. So you go as far as you can. And I wouldn't recommend to stop before your first success, however small. So then you can find out like all the aspects of it, all the struggles, and also the joy that comes with this when you first succeed. And then you know if this project is for you.
Thank you so much.